BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. Black Box Ned 88 on Instagram for the bonus podcast. All right, and welcome to our Zodiac Killer discussion on Richard Hoffman, all things considered, looking at all different angles and possibilities. And with this one, you'll notice that it is part 3, but if you haven't heard parts 1 and 2 yet, that's fine, you can keep listening. We're just going to be talking about the Zodiac Killer mystery and a particular individual who is connected to it, Richard Hoffman. But I hope at some point you will go back and listen to parts 1 and 2. So what I can say is that in part 1, we talked a lot about some theories that could be laid out on the table. Number 1, Richard Hoffman was the Zodiac Killer himself. Number 2, there was some type of policeman thrill kill club going on, and that this is a variant of the group murder theory. And the third possibility is that Richard Hoffman would have nothing to do with any of that. He would only be a responding officer after the Blue Rock Springs shooting on July 4th of 1969. So those are some things. And we should also say that at the end of part 2, we were talking about a possible solution to the Z340 cipher, and there's a line of uncoded text that some people believe that they have, I guess you would simply just say that they have decoded, that they have provided a solution to, and that reveals the name Richard M. Nixon. But Nixon is misspelled, and they turned the X into a K and S, so it would be Nikson. And then I misspoke in that one, saying that Hoffman had 6 letters in his last name. Of course, Hoffman, as you see here, will have 7. And then it would be Richard, and then M. Nixon would be a 7-letter group that they believe that there is that misspelling in an intentional way to tell us that the Zodiac's first name was Richard, and that the second part is that you need somebody with 7 letters in their last name. The reason why I'm so beaten up about that is I practice saying that before the recording. Is like, okay, I think I got this right. I think I follow what they're saying, because it does tie into some of the things involved in a solution that somebody has proposed to the 340 cipher, as well as looking at a possible connection to Richard Hoffman. But I just wanted to be very clear about that. Richard, and then you need somebody, a last name with 7 letters in it, which Hoffman has. But M. Nixon is a 7-letter group if you change the X to a K and an S. All right, but I will digress from that, because I think that it's going to be very important to talk about all things about Richard Hoffman, because no matter what, he is genuinely connected to this mystery. He's not like some of these suspects that people are talking about who may or may not have had anything to do with this. Richard Hoffman was a responding officer after the Blue Rock Springs shooting, so why don't we just do that and look at something that is known as the Hoffman Report. Vallejo Police Department, and this is by Officer Richard Hoffman, July 5th, 1969. At approximately 12:10 a.m. on July 5th, 1969, copied a radio message from KMA 818 regarding the 2 teenagers shot at the area in Blue Rock Springs. Responding officer had just checked this area approximately 15 minutes prior to this transmission and found the parking lot of Blue Rock Springs clear of people or motor vehicles. Proceeding to the area above, driving Vallejo Police Department Unit 130 and following Unit 119, observed Unit 119 make a U-turn on Columbus Parkway, just south of the Blue Rock Springs Golf Course. At this time, the police unit stopped a late model gray Cat, I can only assume that means gray Cadillac, that proceeded towards Vallejo on Columbus Parkway. As the driver out of this Cadillac, he was recognized as Andy Nicolaus Jr., white male, age 19 years old, and resided at some place. And for the rest of this recording, we will be referring to him as just Andy or Andy N. You might see his name written in a few ways. I'm really not too sure if he wants his name read out to the public, but we did say it once. Responding officer then proceeded to the Blue Rock Springs parking lot, thus being the first police vehicle to arrive at this location. It was observed being parked in the southern portion of the parking lot east of Columbus Parkway. The vehicle described in the police broadcast as a brown Corvair belonging to the victims of the shooting. The first subject observed was a white male lying on his back on the ground and to the right of the car. This subject was later ID'd as Michael Renaud Majot. By the way, Mike Majot's middle name is apparently Renaud. Mike Renaud Majot. I don't like it. White male, age 19 years old, date of birth 10/29/1949, residing at the address you see there. This person advised he had been shot but could not afford any further info to the officer at the time. It was evident that the subject was in severe pain from multiple gunshot wounds. Blood was running freely from his mouth, with another visible wound in his lower left leg. And talking about the wound to Mike Mageau's mouth, I would say that I've definitely heard in some sources, even when we did the Zodiac Killer documentary, Obsession into Darkness, it even talked about how Mike Mageau was actually shot in the jaw and a bullet passed through his jawbone, breaking it. Sounds absolutely horribly painful. I haven't heard that exact detail in all of the descriptions that I have read of Mike Mageau being shot, but I mean, if that is true, that just sounds absolutely excruciating. The second subject was observed by responding officer as a white female in a sitting position behind the steering wheel of the aforementioned automobile. She was sitting with her head resting on the inside of the left door at the window of the at the window level. The observation of this girl was made from the open window of the right door. It was noted that her body bore 3 bullet holes. Viewing it from this position, there were 2 gunshot wounds in her upper right arm and 1 bullet entry visible in her right side, a few inches below the armpit. Responding officer at this point went to the left side of the auto and viewed this girl through the open left door window. Did not observe another bullet wound from this position, but did not view a substantial amount of blood splattered on the car. The subject was later ID'd as Darlene Elizabeth Farron, white female, 22 years old, born on March 13th, 1947, residing at the address there. And let's say some things about this, because what do you make of this? They say very clearly here that Darlene was 22 years old at the time. And at the beginning of this, you will see that they refer to, we should really say Richard Hoffman's report refers to these 2 individuals as teenagers. Captured a radio message from KMA 818 regarding 2 teenagers being shot in the area of Blue Rock Springs. And this ties into the whole theory that people are trying to establish about Richard Hoffman and some involvement that people are unaware of. Number one, they want to say that it's possible that Richard Hoffman and Darlene Farron were having an affair. This ties into some comments that people have been making about how, number one, Darlene Farron had numerous affairs. And I don't think that's a heavily disputed fact, or we can definitely say that it's frequently discussed and people don't seem to be questioning that too much. And the second thing is that it's possible that she was having affairs with multiple police officers. Could Richard Hoffman be one of them? When I was reading this report, just like that, something just stood out to me about how they were referred to as teenagers, because we know fully well that Darlene Farron was not a teenager at the time of the shooting. It even says at the bottom of the report that she's 22 years old. Does this mean that Richard Hoffman didn't have an enormous amount of familiarity with Darlene Farron? And what I can say after going through the material for these uploads here on this Richard Hoffman series is that Richard Hoffman appears to deny that he ever had an affair with Darlene Farron. But what do you make of that? Something just definitely bothered me about it. It's one of those things where I can't quite put my finger on it and exactly how that would be relevant, but at one point she's referred to as a teenager, and at another point she was 22 years old. But it is somewhat of a widely established fact that the only true teenage female victim was Betty Lou Jensen, whom I believe was 16 years old at the time. Cecilia Shepard was also a university student, so she was in her early 20s as well. And I just thought that was absolutely shocking when I learned that the oldest victim in the Zodiac Killer mystery was Paul Stein at age 29. But definitely all of the women were much younger, late teens and early 20s, as you heard right there. So, the other thing that I would say about this is that I was watching the video that was put out by Evan from Texas, and I'm not sure if his videos are up or down right now, but he has a series out on the Zodiac case called Peer Review, and in the second video that he did, he mentioned something about this individual named Andy N. that we talked about how this, let's just read that line right there one more time. Talking about, at this time, police units stopped a late model gray Cadillac that proceeded towards Vallejo on Columbus Parkway. As the driver got out of the car, he was recognized as Andy N. Jr., white male, age 19 years old. About him, he is someone who was actually arrested that night, but the cause of his arrest, or the reason for his arrest, has not exactly been a well-established fact. Or at least that's the way it was presented in the video. I had never heard that before, that he actually was arrested for something. And I don't even know if it was at that exact moment that he was arrested. I would expect so, but it could have been at another time. It just that he was arrested that night. I just think that is something that I just want to be clear. I heard that from Evan from Texas. on his channel. And the next thing that I would say about this is that somebody left a recent comment on one of the uploads talking about how many people misspell words in their written letters. Like the Zodiac misspelled a lot of words. Now, people almost exclusively believe that the Zodiac Killer knew how to spell and that the misspellings are most likely intentional. But in the Richard Hoffman Report, in the third paragraph, it says, responding officer proceeded to Blue Rock Springs parking lot, thus being the first police vehicle to arrive at this location. It was observed, I mean, if that is what they want to say, but was is spelled AWS. Is this just like meaning that we're only human? With the Zodiac misspellings, it's almost quite obvious that they're very blatant, and they're definitely a little bit different than that. But is that some type of clue or tip off, or maybe it's just meant to be something that we're supposed to pay attention to? And a lot of people simply think that about the Zodiac Killer mystery, that the misspellings that are found in the Zodiac Killer letters, as well as in all of the material surrounding the case, it's just trying to show that there's something that we're supposed to pay attention to, or simply it could be more of what Gary Stewart and Steve Hodel say, that those misspellings are meaningless. It is just meant to be confusing and leave people constantly guessing, and it's almost pushing people down a bunch of false leads, dead-end pathways. Okay, so these are some of the things from the Hoffman Report, but the biggest thing that I would like to say is just to reinforce that point, and I would love to hear your responses to this as a practical challenge question. Do you believe that there's any significance of Darlene Ferrin being referred to as a teenager, and then she's stating that she was 22 years old? Does this mean that Richard Hoffman did indeed not have a very strong personal connection to her? What do you think about that? Just kind of throwing that out as a challenge question. And the next thing that I would like to do is to go over to an article that was published on ZodiacCyphers.com. And if you want to follow up on any of this stuff, I hope that you will read this, ZodiacCyphers.com. The article is called When I Hung Up the Phone. This was published on January 15th of 2016, but I insist, please, if you want to follow up, read this article. It is absolutely excellent. And we're going to be talking about the Zodiac Killer debut letter that happened on August 4th, 1969, saying that the man who told police that my car was brown was a Negro about 40 to 45 years old, rather shabbily dressed. I was in a phone booth having some fun with the Vallejo cop when he was walking by. When I hung up the damn thing, it began to ring, and this drew attention to me plus my car. Debut of Zodiac letter, August 4th, 1969. And let's have a read here from this article. The Negro male was supposedly never identified or mentioned in the Blue Rock Springs police report. Was the Zodiac lying about this encounter, as many people would argue, or was this a genuine encounter of the Zodiac Killer? Here we will run through some arguments. In the police report, it stated that a call was received at 12:40 a.m. by an unknown citizen, saying, I wish to report a double murder. If you go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway to a public park, you will find the kids in a brown car. They've been shot by a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye. So maybe you've heard that before. Now, before we get any deeper into that, somebody asked me a question that I meant to use in the most recent AMA as well as in the Zodiac Killer Q&A session when they were saying, did the person who made that phone call specifically say that they were the Zodiac Killer? And you just heard the text right there. This person did not say this is the Zodiac speaking or anything like that. And that was actually on one of the Zodiac Hoax theory uploads that we have done in the past. So I just want to point that out. And it really is quite odd as well that even if you're going down the pathway of the Zodiac Hoax theory and you're somebody who thinks that these murders were committed by multiple people and one person took credit for it, even when you look at anything in the Zodiac Killer mystery, you don't see an enormous amount of combinations of a signature. And I heard a lot about this on Drew Beeson's channel and talking about the Zodcast, his show, when he said that the Zodiac symbol rarely appears with the name Zodiac together. I mean, is there any motivation for that other than the fact that it is mentioned on the Zodiac watches? Like there's a real brand of watches that has the name Zodiac. So something to say in that respect. It is just that the Zodiac really doesn't seem to put a whole lot of things together at once. It's just like signing if you were to sign the letters with the Zodiac symbol, write the word Zodiac every time there's a phone call. This is the Zodiac speaking. I just think that would be somewhat of a different presentation. Okay, let's keep going. At 12:47 a.m., Mrs. Johnson, PT&T operator, called. The above call was traced to a coin-operated telephone at Joe's Union, Tuolumne, and Springs Road. The call was traced by Betty Main, whose supervisor would not allow her to give a statement. And the big things that I think are that they're sharing in this article is that the technology that was required to trace a phone call that quickly did not exist in 1969. And to give the exact quotation, a caller had to be on the line for a minimum of 15 minutes for a call to be traced. Although not completely accurate, this was referenced in the 2007 film Zodiac, featuring a clip of Melvin Belli call to chat show when Belli was instructed by, says, Pacific Telephone says, you need to keep him on the line for 15 minutes. Now, we have mentioned about how the perpetrator could have learned some things. I mean, is this just a giant wrench in the theories of everybody? Richard Hoffman as an individual? Does this just answer all the questions? How was this individual able to know things that only the police would know, or that's only found in these reports? I will state some facts that only I and the police would know. Well, he wouldn't have had any access to that if it had been the person who was writing it. I mean, is that just really where all of this kind of culminates together? I mean, I can't say 100% because I'm going to be fully honest with you. I don't know everything that happened in the Zodiac Killer mystery. If it turns out that Richard Hoffman actually did play a larger role in the Zodiac Killer mystery than simply being a responding officer who showed up in plain clothes and rode to the hospital with Darlene Ferrin and Mike Mageau, I would be very surprised. But I definitely would say that that would explain why there's this giant wrench that has just been thrown into the mystery. And because you have to look at that, like going through all of the sources, people are noticing that there are a lot of strong similarities from the material that is published in the letters, the Zodiac Killer letters, as well as what's in the police reports. And that leads us to believe that, it leads some people to believe that the person writing those letters had access to the police reports. That's number one in terms of a possibility. Number two, that there, like the accusations that of similarities between the police reports and the letters could be entirely coincidental. We're just talking about some similar words, some similar ideas. It really isn't super precise, or it's not completely beyond belief that somebody could have just been messing around and making stuff up. But the second challenge question that I would like to ask you is really about that phone call. Do you think that it's weird that the name Zodiac isn't mentioned in all of the phone calls that people are attributing to the Zodiac Killer? Do you think that it isn't weird that the Zodiac perhaps did not say that he was the Zodiac prior to the shootings? I mean, at least Mike Mageau did not report it, nor did Brian Hartnell, like at the Lake Berryessa stabbing on September 27th of 1969. Does that sound bizarre that even when the person is wearing that costume with the Zodiac symbol on it, not saying this is the Zodiac speaking, or my name is the Zodiac, I'm going to tie you up and take your money and go to Mexico, which obviously did not happen because Paul Stine was murdered 2 weeks later. And I just think that's one of the other confusing elements in this. But I mean, Steve Odell, Gary Stewart say the exact same response when they're just like, that dialogue at Lake Berryessa was meaningless. It's just meant to be confusing and to get a desired outcome, meaning that people will go along with what this perpetrator wants to do. And whether your suspect is Richard Hoffman or anybody else, a big consistency that has been noted in the Zodiac Killer mystery is that the Zodiac wanted control, power. Perhaps you're dealing with somebody who's very neurotic and is worrying a lot, and they aren't necessarily very good at maintaining control of many things. So what they're doing is they're getting off by creating this image of terror and power, and just knowing that people are going to be afraid of this concept known as the Zodiac, or just simply that the idea of other people trying to figure out this mystery that has a bunch of dead ends that have been intentionally planted is what makes this person tick, and what it makes this person feel that those feelings of exhilaration. It's possible. But I would just like to ask one final question. What do you have to say about the Hoffman Report? Is there anything else that stood out to you that seems really bizarre? I mean, I told you what I said about how Darlene Ferrin is first referred to as a teenager. Would you simply just think that it's not that bizarre to refer to a 22-year-old as a teenager, even though it does state her age at the end of this report? Do you just think that that is something that isn't weird at all? Do you think Richard Hoffman's misspelling of the word was I mean, that's talk about difficult words, right? No, I mean, we all misspell words from time to time, but what do you really think about that? Do you think there's any significance to that, or is this just something else that really people would be sort of making a mountain out of a molehill in regards to? All right, well, that's all for me now. Please drop anything that you have in the comments section below. And if you like this upload, you can hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you're welcome to do so. But most importantly, please put some comments on the section below so we can continue the discussion. That's all for me now. See you on Instagram for the bonus podcast. Until next time.